You see, this week, and you'll find this through all of our 3 hours and all of the three subjects today, I've come to the point where I've had enough. I've had enough of the lies, enough of the spinning, enough of the sidelining of contracts to Tory donors and associates. Jeremy Hunt has been doing the rounds today. You'll have seen him on the telly, probably. You'll have heard him on the radio. And basically, all I can hear is a lot of word salad. So he'll say, the Tories are the party of cutting taxes. And then I'll think, really? The highest tax burden since World War II? Oh, yes, we want net zero. Yes. So how are you going about that, love? Well, we're investing in even more North Sea oil that, as we all now know, won't alter the price we pay at all, as it's all sold on the international market anyway. And then they'll talk about HS2 and use that money for Network North, which basically fills in potholes in London. Now, Jeremy Hunt was on LBC earlier today with my colleague Matthew Wright. Maybe he was giving us a clue to something he might say in the budget on Tuesday as he was having a go at the efficiency of public services.
Chancellors, as you know, Matthew, as a very experienced journalist, we don't tell you what we're going to do in a budget 3 days ahead of the budget. But you can look at my track record for clues as to my priorities.
Go on.
And certainly in all the budgets and autumn statements I've done, I have wanted to help people with cost of living pressures because, inflation was 11% when I took over. It's down at 4%, but that has put real pressure on family finances. But overall, I think what people want is not gimmicks. They want a long-term, responsible, sensible plan to grow the economy so that we can bring down taxes and have enough money for public services in the future. And that's what I'll be delivering. What we've got to learn to do is run public services more efficiently, because if we don't, we'll end up with taxes not just staying high, but getting even higher.
There it is. We have to learn to run public services more efficiently. A bit rich coming from the Tories. Why is it a bit rich? Because I'm going to give you some facts, some evidence and some data. There's Jeremy Hunt trying to sound responsible, talking about the budget, which is Wednesday. Sorry, I got very excited, said it was Tuesday. I'm wishing their time away before their time is up. But anyway, is Jeremy Hunt actually a responsible Chancellor? Because here is the chair of the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, the independent body, effectively, which gives the Treasury various reports upon which it makes its decisions, the Treasury does. It's the OBR is a kind of check and balance on the bank account of the government. Now, what the chair of the OBR said only a few weeks ago to a committee in the Lords about this government was shocking.
The second thing we're required to do is rely on what the government tells us is its desired path for spending on public services, so departmental expenditure limits. At the moment, it has those falling as a share of GDP, but the government provides almost no detail about how that is delivered. The government did a spending review setting out detailed departmental spending plans for the year up until the 31st of March 2025. Beyond that, we know virtually nothing. It is just two numbers, one for total current spending and one for total capital spending done by departments. And I think some people have referred to that as a work of fiction. I think that's probably generous, given that someone's bothered to write a work of fiction, whereas the government hasn't even been bothered to write down what its departmental spending plans are underpinning the plans for public service.
That is astonishing. That's the chair of the Office of Budget Responsibility calling government financial predictions worse than a work of fiction. They haven't even been bothered to write down what their departmental spending plans are past March 2025. Think about that. Think about the serious nature of that. And Jeremy Hunt will be standing up in the House of Commons, giving us his budget and telling us how we are going to have to live economically until we have, please, the general election. Now, I'm going to give you some more evidence. This week, there was an incredible piece of research which was shown in graph form. It was called something like the 10 graphs, which tell you about the Conservatives and their economics since 2010. So it was all about the last 14 years. Obviously, I was interested. So I'm just going to read you some of that. So one of the things Because of the Conservatives and their economic plans over the last 14 years, we have the highest level of debt as a percentage of GDP since the 1960s, standing at well over £2.3 trillion. That's a fact. The NHS waiting lists are more than 3 times higher than they were in 2010. We talk about growing the economy because Jeremy Hunt has been talking about that. Well, the National Institute of Economic and Social Research estimates the UK's trend of annual growth rate, so this is sort of the prediction of how our economy will grow, has fallen from 3.4% a year in the post-war period up to 1973 to 2.3% up to the financial crisis in 2008. OK, so we were at 2.3% then. Now it's just 1.2% in the years since then, right? Not doing so well. Here's another one. The UK goods trade has fallen 15% below the G7 since Brexit. Well done, Brexit. Another one. In Great Britain, average weekly earnings in 2023 are below their 2008 peak in real average weekly earnings terms. Bit of good news. UK unemployment has remained low and reduced from a spike during the global financial crisis. That's a bit of good news. Here's one. Net migration has increased fourfold since the Brexit referendum. Do you trust the Tories with your money? Well, let's have a look at what Labour say. So I've been on to Rachel Reeves's office this morning. This is how it stands. Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, vows to appoint a COVID corruption commissioner with powers to claw back everything they can for the taxpayer from dodgy contracts dished out in the pandemic. £10 billion worth, this is one of my areas of expertise, £10 billion worth of PPE was failed to deliver, was massively overpriced, and also the fraudulent cases of COVID business support. So that was about £7 billion. So she could claw back up to £17 billion there, although they're not promising that they would get 100% of that. Labour would abolish the non-dom status, putting that money into the NHS and dentistry. As we know, Rishi Sunak's wife took advantage of that for very many years when he was Chancellor and MP before that. That would claw back £2.3 billion a year. Labour would close loopholes for private schools. That would raise £1.3 billion. Close what's called the carried interest loopholes so that private equity managers pay income tax on their earnings, not the lower rate of capital gains. That would be about £500 million. And then a green prosperity plan, which basically would be funded by a bigger and stronger windfall tax on oil and gas producers. That would be £10.8 billion. So what do we want? Labour or Tory?